Can anybody stop the Oregon Ducks? Anybody? Washington? Anybody in the Big Ten title game? College football playoffs? We'll try and figure that out. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com and get started. So, the Oregon Ducks, supreme, the best, number one. Who can beat them? Anybody? Plus, we have the latest college football playoff polls and our own power rankings, by the way, and the Big Ten players of the week. But let's start with the Oregon Ducks. They remain undefeated. They're coming off a late season bye week, and they get ready to take on former Pac-12 rival Washington for Hate Week this weekend. And they remain number one in the country, the college football playoff rankings, which were updated on Tuesday night. More on that poll and the playoff projections in just a minute. It got me to thinking, as this remarkable season winds down, can anybody beat the Ducks? Are they going to just cruise past Washington and finish the regular season undefeated? Or will they follow that with a win in the Big Ten championship game versus either Ohio State, Penn State, or long shot Indiana? We'll see. How about the college football playoffs, which the Ducks are locked to make? How far can they go? Can they go all the way? We'll take a closer look at that in just a moment. But first, right now, how healthy are the Ducks? All right, let's get started with wide receiver and punt returner Tez Johnson. He's probably the most exciting player on the team. And he's been out since injuring his shoulder in the Michigan game. He traveled with the team and did not dress at Wisconsin. Obviously didn't play. The team's coming off a well-timed and restful bye week here, and they're going to face Washington for the season finale. Dan Lanning will not come out and say it, but it appears Johnson will be ready to go this weekend. There's defensive end Jordan Burch. He's been in and out of the lineup since the Ohio State week. He returned for the Maryland game, but hurt his ankle, missed the Wisconsin game. And he's a big piece of that Ducks defense. He has 8.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 6 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and that was just in 7 games. Then there's guard Marcus Harper II. He injured his knee in the Michigan game. He's missed the last 2 games. Again, no public word from Lanning on his availability or that of Burch. So back to the original question. Can anybody beat the Ducks? Well, a lesser Wisconsin team almost did just that a couple of weekends ago. And I argue if Braden Locke was a more accurate passer, Wisconsin would have beat Oregon that day. On that particular day, that night, at that game, that's how that game was going. So there's that. Now, on to Washington. This is a rivalry where anything can happen. Plus, the Ducks have a 3-game losing streak to Washington, including 2 losses last year by a field goal. Otherwise, it probably would have been the Ducks in the playoffs instead of Washington. 2 things the Ducks will have to focus on here when you look at Washington. They got a great running back in Jonah Coleman, one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. And Washington's starting to use their freshman quarterback, Damon Williams Jr. a little bit more. He's their athletic change of pace guy. They're using him more and more. He's getting better. He's getting dangerous. And 5th-year starter Will Rogers has been the starter, but he got benched in their last game in the second half. Then the Huskies went over UCLA, came out through a couple of interceptions, and then Williams came in and led them to 3 scoring drives. So don't be totally surprised if this weekend, if Williams gets to start. And nobody's saying anything yet, but don't be shocked. I'm putting it out there that it could happen. Jed Fish says he has made up his mind, but he's not telling anybody. It tells me he's thinking about it. Of course, as a head coach, he should be, but I think that's the move here. Moving forward to the Big Ten championship game regarding Oregon, They're going to appear in that no matter what happens in the game against Washington. They'll either face Ohio State, Penn State, or even Indiana, depending on how things play out on Saturday. The good news is by the time Oregon kicks off Saturday night, they will know the fate of Ohio State and Penn State, while Indiana has a late kickoff as well. Look, if Ohio State beats Michigan, that's it. That's a wrap. It's going to be Oregon versus Ohio State, the rematch on a neutral field. So for the Big Ten championship. So that's how it's most likely going to go down. Every Ducks fan knows what happened October 12th when they beat Ohio State in Autzen 32-31 in a game that went down to the wire, literally. And we'll probably do so again on a neutral field, I would think. I mean, win or lose, both teams will still make the 12-team playoff, but I think we're heading for a rematch of the Big Ten championship game. And I think both teams are very formidable, and either one can beat the other one on any given day. Maybe Ohio State's the only team they can beat Oregon. Maybe not. Looking ahead to the playoffs outside of Ohio State, teams like Texas and Penn State, I think they're beatable by Oregon if if they would play. I think Notre Dame would be an interesting matchup. They're hot as a firecracker right now, and their slip up to Northern Illinois was way back in September. They've remedied that situation. If Oregon was to face Georgia in the playoffs, I don't think Georgia is the same Georgia that we're used to in the postseason. I think they're beatable. And I don't think Tennessee could keep up with the Ducks either. These are just some of the teams that they could be facing in the playoffs coming up. Having said all that, I think it's Ohio State or bust. I think standing in between the Ducks and a perfect record at a Big Ten title and or a national title. Heck, they may meet a third time in the playoffs. Ducks fans, what do you think? Are we off base here? Is it can nobody compete with the Ducks? Are you that good? Do you have a fear factor or respect for Ohio State or Texas or somebody else that Georgia, somebody you may face in the playoffs? Let me know. Get the comments going here on YouTube. Would love to hear from you and get your honest opinion on all that. Couple programming notes for you. We're going to be off Thanksgiving Day. No new podcast on Thursday. So we hope you have a wonderful holiday with your family. I'm going to try and do the same. Normal schedule today, Wednesday and Friday. We'll have a podcast like we always do. Saturdays, we go live after a key game at some point, whether it's afternoon or early or late evening. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go live on Locked On Big Ten's YouTube channel for a complete recap of rivalry weekend. We're going to do it Saturday night late, right after the Washington-Oregon game. That's going to be around 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific, right here. Mark your calendar. Join us for my immediate post-game reaction, yours as well. It's a lot of live feedback. We love it. It's very successful. It's a lot of fun. Hope to see you there. Also, whatever you do, before you go, if you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, it's free. And then you and I are on the same page with all Big Ten news each and every day. We put these podcasts out every day. So if you could subscribe, that'd be great. Always free. It doesn't require any personal information. You can subscribe, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. And then you get this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Don't forget, you can do some shopping for Big Ten gear in time for Christmas, Black Friday deals. We have a link on our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there, but also we have links to all your favorite schools. If you want to buy school merchandise, shirts, hats, t-shirts, pennants, all that stuff right there at Talk Big Ten. And again, Black Friday deals are there for you. All right, I want to take a closer look at the college football playoffs and the rankings and the polls that came out on Tuesday. We'll play it all out for you. And also our Big Ten players of the week. We got a little news with a couple of teams, injuries going into the final weekend of the season. So we're action-packed, lots going on. Don't go anywhere, right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel makes the excitement of watching games even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You can start with $150 of bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Black Friday, Raiders and Chiefs, NFL. Chiefs minus 13.5. Chiefs have close games. And the Raiders, I don't know, something about them playing on Black Friday at Kansas City. I think they're going to be up for it, even though the Raiders don't have a quarterback. You know what? They don't have a quarterback. I'm going to take the Chiefs minus 13.5. You can do that. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Every moment right there. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and follow it like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. All right. College football playoff rankings updated. Still have 4 Big Ten teams in the picture for the playoffs. Barely. All right. Oregon, still number 1. No problem. Ohio State, still number 2. Texas, still 3. Penn State, still 4. Notre Dame moves up to number 5. Miami's at 6. Georgia is at 7th. They moved up 3. Tennessee moved up 3 to 8. SMU up 4 to 9. Indiana, after losing to Ohio State, falls from 5 to 10. Still in the top 10. Boise State is 11th. Clemson is 12th, but Clemson would not be in the playoffs today. They'd be the first team out, even though they moved up 5 spaces. In fact, Alabama, second team out at 13. Ole Miss is at 14. They'd be out. South Carolina, a hot mover here. South Carolina, +3. They're at 15. 16th rated Arizona State would be the last team in the playoffs right now, the way it works with the formula. All right, so that means our playoff projections would look like this. The 12th seed and 16th ranked Arizona State, they'd take on 5 seed and 2nd ranked Ohio State. That's the matchup there. 9 seed, 8th ranked Tennessee would take on 8 seed, 7th ranked Georgia. Tennessee versus Georgia, SEC battle. 11 seed and 10th ranked Indiana would take on 6 seed and 4th ranked Penn State. That'd be at Happy Valley, by the way. So you'd have a Big Ten matchup if the season ended today in the first round of the playoffs. 10 seed and 9th ranked SMU would take on 7 seed and 5th ranked Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Let's back up a little bit. After the Arizona game at Ohio State, the winner of that game would move on to take on the 4th seed, but 11th ranked Boise State. Boise State gets a bye, as does Oregon, Miami, and Texas. The winner of the Tennessee-Georgia game would take on Oregon. The winner of the Indiana-Penn State game would take on Miami. And then the winner of SMU-Notre Dame would take on Texas. So your comments on there. Did they get it right? Indiana's still in it. 4 Big Ten teams in the picture right now. Speaking of Penn State, got some news on them. Offensive lineman, starting right tackle, Anthony Donko, suffered a right knee injury in the Minnesota game. Going to be out for the rest of the season, unfortunately, versus Maryland and any bowl game. Backup defensive tackle, Alonzo Ford, also suffered an injury in that game. He'll be out. As far as the Iowa Hawkeyes go, they're preparing for their season finale against Nebraska. And as you know, their top 2 quarterbacks are missing. They're missing for the depth chart. Cade McNamara is having a hard time coming back from this concussion. He's been sidelined with it since October 26th. And Northwestern transfer Brandon Sullivan, he's been out now with an ankle since November 9th. So it looks like more action at quarterback for Colorado State transfer and walk-on Jackson Stratton. He held down the fort against Maryland last week, completed 10 of 14 passes. The Hawkeyes are 7-4. By the way, the Hawkeyes, if they win, they'll give Kirk Ferentz his 204th victory with Iowa. That'll put him 1 shy of Woody Hayes as the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten. Speaking of superlatives around the Big Ten, let's take a look at the weekly Big Ten Players of the Week. We have offensive players of the week this week. Pat Bryant at Illinois, you knew he was going to be in. He's their senior wide receiver at Illinois, caught the game-winning touchdown with 4 seconds to go. part of a 197-yard, 7-reception day to lead Illinois to a 38-31 win at Rutgers. There were 3 lead changes in the last 3:07 of that ball game, including that game-winning touchdown. It was his 3rd game-winning touchdown in the final minute or overtime this season, most in the country. And he surpassed 2,000 receiving yards for his career on that game-winning touchdown. It was incredible. It was a crazy story. They kicked a 58-yard desperate back on the field. They ran that play, and he scored. It was score or bust. Will Howard, quarterback at Ohio State, he is the other offensive player of the week, and he extended his school single season and career records with his 6th game with a completion percentage of at least 80%, 22 of 26 for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns in the win over number 5 Indiana. He found Emeka Egbuka, an 11-yard touchdown score after Indiana taking a 7-0 lead. Jelani Thurman also caught a 1-yard touchdown pass from him to make it 28-7. And he leads the nation in completion percentage at 74%, which is remarkable because I know we spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about him going into the spring when he transferred. We had question marks. For his 4-year career, every year, he was a 59% passer. Now he's got it up to 74. Whatever he and Chip Kelly are doing is working. Defensive player of the week, also Ohio State, Cody Simon, their linebacker, led the Buckeyes in their effort against Indiana. Indiana had the 15th ranked offensive unit in the country, and the Buckeyes really shut them down. He had a game high 10 tackles, 2.5 sacks, forced fumble. The 10-tackle game was Simon's 3rd this season with 10 tackles, and his 2.5 sacks represent a career high for a single game and helped the Buckeyes to a season high, tying 5 quarterback sacks on the afternoon. Special teams player of the week in the Big Ten, Drew Stevens, Iowa, their kicker, tied the Iowa program record set in 2004, and also made 5 field goals. 5 field goals in Iowa's 29-13 win at Maryland. Tied a career high with a 54-yarder, made 2 from over 50. First Iowa player to make multiple 50-yard field goals since 1998. He now has 7 career makes from over 50 yards, school record for that. 17 of 20 on attempts this season, and he's the first player ever to make 2 from 50-plus against Maryland. We also have the freshman of the week from Nebraska, Ja'Cory Barney Jr., wide receiver. Set career highs with 9 receptions and 85 yards. And that was in Nebraska's win against Wisconsin that made Nebraska bowl eligible. He also rushed for 11 yards and had 54 yards in returns for 150 all-purpose yards. Pretty good for a freshman. It's pretty good. Had a 45-yard kickoff return to open the game. And just a great game. Good job by him. Ja'Cory Barney Jr. of Nebraska. All right, those are our players of the week, our playoff projections, all of that. And coming up in a minute, since it's the middle of our week, we've got our own power rankings, Big Ten standings as we see them. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, let's get to it. We got our own power rankings. Forget about the college football playoff rankings or the Associated Press poll. We're going to tell you how we think the rankings should go down in the Big Ten. All right, here we go. We'll put them on full screen. If you're audio only, I'll share them out loud. I'll describe them in detail here. Obviously, number one, we're not going to buck the system with all the other polls out there. We've had Oregon at number 1 all along. They're still number 1. Ohio State's still number 2. A couple of weeks ago, we had nudged Indiana up to number 2. We said, hey, everybody just relax. That'll take care of itself on the football field, and it did. So Ohio State, a strong number 2. Still got Penn State sitting at there at number 3. And then the Indiana Hoosiers, after their loss to Ohio State, falling to number 4. And we've got Illinois as the 5th best team in the Big Ten. Now, those are all ranked teams in the Associated Press as well. And that's the order they're in. So nothing too fancy there. I don't disagree with any of those. No need to shake it up just for the sake of shaking things up. I got the Iowa Hawkeyes at number 6. I've been pretty favorable to the Hawkeyes rankings throughout the season. I just think that's a good football team, despite all their quarterback problems that they have. They can't get settled in at quarterback. But you know what? No matter who is in there at quarterback, if they just go in there and throw for 85 or 90 yards, that's all they need. Somehow, Iowa is able to win with minimal quarterback play. Don't make mistakes. Get you on just under 100 yards passing, and let your running backs just run wild. That's how they do it. And then the defense keeps you in the game. It's remarkable year in and year out how they're able to operate without awesome quarterback play in this day and age when football has become a passing sport. Got the Washington Huskies. They're going bowling. I got them at number 7. Minnesota came within 1 point. Vikings, had they lost to a close game on the road at Minnesota, I wonder how far they would have fallen. I will never know because you know what? Penn State got the win. But I got respect for Minnesota. They play well. Sitting there at number 8. Michigan at number 9. You know, they had their best game of the year this past weekend, but was against Northwestern, so I don't have to say, but they were completing passes, they were running, they were doing what they do. They did it against Northwestern. Nebraska, bowl eligible Nebraska, sitting at number 10. I've always thought they were a good team all year, even when they had their losing streak, and I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them to get that bowl eligibility in there. Meanwhile, we got Rutgers at number 11. That was a heartbreaking loss for Rutgers against Illinois this past weekend. I still think Rutgers is a good streaky team. Win 4, lose 4, win a couple, lose some. They've just been all over the map. But they're still, I think, a good football team. Wisconsin, man, they could be a good, really good football team. They could get settled at quarterback. I got them at number 12. Michigan State, look, I had them around the bottom of this pile, around Purdue and all that most of the season. They're playing better now. And Jonathan Smith, I think he's got something to build on there. USC, their big game against Notre Dame, maybe they could show me something. That's probably one of the most disappointing teams this season, USC, number 14. They did beat UCLA, so I have them ranked ahead of the Bruins at 15. Maryland just didn't quite get there this year, and they're at 16. Got Northwestern at 17. As you can see, Purdue at 1-10, rounding out the bottom. One of the lesser teams in the Big Ten, in the country for that matter. 1-10, taking on 10-1 Indiana for the old Oaken Bucket this season, or this weekend. So there you have it. Did we get any wrong? Right? Comments? Hit us up. Love to hear from you on all of that. Moving forward. There are many ways to hit us up with comments and be a part of this podcast. First of all, there's Twitter or X. I Talk Big Ten. There's also our website, talkbig10.com, where all of our podcasts go chronologically, group them by team, and also links if you want to do some Christmas shopping on there. Get your favorite teams, hats, shirts, and T-shirts, and merchandise. That's talkbig10.com. And then the comments on YouTube, they're really getting going. It's rivalry week. Go back and check them out from all of our podcasts. The comments at the end, people trash talking a little bit. It's a lot of fun. I always ask you to do that. And I ask you, go back and check out some more of our podcasts. Get caught up if you haven't, maybe for a second listen. That would be fantastic. Whatever you do, take a second, hit that little subscribe button. Just right now, just boom. That's it. That's it. No information required. It's absolutely free. If you subscribe, it helps us out. Helps you out as well. We're right there every day when the podcasts come out. So subscribe, share, and follow, and like Locked On Big Ten right now, wherever you get your favorite podcasts and on your favorite podcast app. And you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right, so this wraps it up for Wednesday. Quick recap. No podcast Thursday for Thanksgiving. Enjoy your holiday. Thanks for spending some time with us here today. We'll be back with a podcast Friday, which we will preview all the games from rivalry week. We'll get you going into the weekend like normal, and then our live podcast right after the Washington-Oregon game on Saturday night here on YouTube. All right, that'll do it. Thanks so much for checking us out. Can't wait till we meet next time. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten. We'll talk to you next time.